Thank you, Team Sangam Talks, for inviting me yet another time to talk about yatras, to talk about my book. So I'm going to structure my talk into two segments. In the first segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about the book so that you know what is in the book, and hopefully all of you will pick it up and read and then interact. And the second part is that why did I write the book, and what was the need of the book, and what is the way forward from here? What do we need to do in the travel and tourism space from a very Indic perspective? So with that, I will start, and I would request people to keep sharing any questions that they have in the chat box, and we can potentially address them towards the end of the talk. So Lotus in the Stone is a lens through which you see India. There are various lenses through which you can see India. The most commonly used lens to see India is that of spirituality. That's like the branding India has in the global mental space, where people see it as the spiritual epicenter of the world, the most ancient living civilization. The spiritual gurus come from this place. That's one angle of it. But when I, as a traveler, look at India, to me, it is a land of travelers. It is a land which is bound together by the yatras, by the pilgrimage. And why do I say that? I grew up in North India primarily. And when I first visited South India, and I started living there in Bangalore 20 plus years back, there was nothing that was same. Yet it was the same India. You have the same sense of belongingness that you have in the rest of India. So I had this question in my head that what is it that makes us Indian? Besides the fact that there is a landmass defined in our scriptures which says this is the land of Bharata, something that is south of Himalayas and north of the sea, that is Bharat. But then what makes me similar to somebody coming from, let's say, Tamil Nadu or Karnataka? When you go there, is it language? Definitely no. Yeah, I remember in 2003, I lived in UK for a short while, and I had moved there from Bangalore. And the first thing that hit me there was that, oh, I can understand every word being spoken, which was not the fact in Bangalore. I couldn't understand a word of Kannada then. Now I do understand it quite a bit. So language was definitely not it. And the language boundaries we shared with people who were closer to our boundaries. So if I'm a Punjabi, I share my boundaries with Pakistan. I understand their language far more easily than I understand the language of South of India. So language is not there. Is it the way we dress up? Not really. We all dress up in million different ways. Is it the food that we eat? To a small extent, yes, because we all use the same ingredients in our food, and ingredients is something that probably binds us, but the expression of those ingredients is again as varied as the culture of it. But then what is it that joins us together? I found the answer in the book, which I've written about in the book, is the faith, the common metaphors and language that we speak, something that is very, very clearly understood by everybody. For example, if I tell one of you that this person is Hanuman, you immediately know that this person is dependable, this person is not going to cheat you, this person is going to move mountains if need be, he's going to stand by you, he's devoted, dedicated, and all the attributes that are associated with Hanuman. At the same time, if I tell you that this person is like Shakuni Mama, you immediately know to be very, very careful with such a person. You immediately read that person as a scheming person. And these are the metaphors and languages which are understood across the country, irrespective of faith, language, all kinds of differences, across all differences. This is the language of metaphors that is understood across the entire Indian subcontinent. So that is one thing that binds us. But then what was connecting us? So at a faith level, this is what is binding us. But on a practical plane, how are we connecting to each other? That is through the map of Pilgrims India. If there was a map, I hope to create it someday, of Pilgrims India, that is what connects us. No matter where you live in India, Kashi is in your wish list. It's in the top of your wish list. You want to go there, visit it. Probably you want to die there. If you live in north of India, irrespective of where you are, you want to visit Rameshwaram. I remember my grandmother visited south of India in her 60s, and I was a very, very young child then. She probably could not have placed Rameshwaram on the map of India if we asked her where is it, but she knew it is far away, it is close to the sea. It has 22 wells from which you have to take the water and do the abhishek of the lingam there, and the fact that the lingam was established by Sri Ram. So she knew everything about Rameshwaram without even knowing where exactly it is and the rest of the things. Of course, when she visited, she came back with a lot of stories of how the temples are so different from the temples of North India, how the people dress up differently, they eat up differently, they speak up differently. But then what binds us is that we worship the same God. We worship the same. We worship the same deities, and we are aware of the deities who are located far away from where we are born. No matter where we are, we all know there is a Kamakhya temple, we all know there is Somnath, we all know there is a Mahakal temple in Ujjain, and these are the places that everybody knows, and it's on the wish list of everybody. And there were defined yatras that people undertook. For example, the Narmada Parikrama Yatra that a lot of people still undertake. They walk around the whole 3,000 plus kilometers of the Narmada River. It takes minimum of 4 to 5 months, but people do it. There is Kailash Mansarovar Yatra that there are these yatras which are seasonal, which are annual. There are 12 yearly cycles like our Kumbh Melas that we do. So there is a complete map of yatras, and these were the intersection points for Indians living across the geography to come together and meet. If you've been to Kumbh Mela, which is where I start the book from, uh, you would see that the whole of India is there, interacting with each other, praying together, taking a dip in the Ganga Yamuna Sangam together, or Ganga or Shipra or Godavari together. And they're also exchanging a whole lot of information. They're exchanging information about what is happening, all kinds of exchange happens. The intersection, as we call in the world of innovation, the intersection happens when people travel to each other's territory, or they all travel to the same territory, to the same pilgrimage site. That's where intersections happen. Those were the meeting points for people, and that's what connected them. It led them to do a lot of trade. So you would see that Banaras, which is our most sacred uh, city in the world, it's also more or less at the intersection of the two major trade routes that used to be in India, the Uttar Path and the Dakshin Path. They used to intersect. So the traders coming from north, south, east, west, all would meet in Kashi and do their trade. And it was always a great trading center as well. So these yatras were connecting people, the pilgrims. And there was in your Varnashram system also, yatras were inbuilt into the system. And in the last chapter, I have even mentioned that. In most communities, at least in my community, once people are done with the major responsibilities in life, which is essentially getting your children married and handing over the core responsibilities of your household and your business to the next generation, most people then go for a pilgrimage. They travel to their chosen pilgrimage site, and then they meet and they come back and they tell the stories to their grandchildren, to their children, and they carry forward this tradition of pilgrimage. So for me, what binds India is traveling to each other's community, to territory, and learning about each other and interacting with each other. And travel was more than just eat, drink, and be merry, which is what we are reducing it today. Today, we only think traveling or tourism is all about going and staying in a great hotel, spending money in the hotel, and coming back, or at the most, partying a lot. But a travel used to be for lot of purposes. People used to travel for education, people used to travel for business, people used to travel for wars, and people used to travel for pilgrimage. These were 4 5 key things for which people travel. People travel even today, but our travels are becoming a lot more shallow. So we need to look at that angle. Apart from this, I have given a few lenses which are not commonly used to see India. We usually see our heritage as structures, and we see them uh, as a, as a structure belonging to a certain period, to a certain kingdom, of certain dimensions, telling certain stories through its sculptures. But what we usually miss out is that these are all brilliant engineering marvels. Each of them. Look at Ajanta Ellora caves, look at the Kailash Natha temple at Ellora, look at the Brihadeshwara temple in Tanjore, look at the Kandari Mahadev temple in Khajuraho. These are all living examples of our engineering excellence. uh, any of these temples, they are right there in front of us. If we tell our best engineers to replicate it with all possible technology at our disposal today, most people refuse to accept that they can be replicated. So look at the sophistication and the knowledge of that sophistication that is kind of lost. So I really want people to start looking at these as inspirations for designing our next buildings. Tell me one building that we have designed in last 70, 80 years post independence which can even be compared to any of these marvels. Forget about replicating them. So engineering is one lens. Language, like I said, is one lens. In engineering, again, water management. Today, we are facing a water crisis. Our rivers are in a very, very bad shape, the worst ever possible, probably. Our lakes are dying. In cities like Bangalore, all lakes have been encroached and they are almost on the verge of dying. Uh, Water bodies are non-existent. Last week I was talking to somebody in Delhi and I said Yamuna is dead and you have no other major water body in that city, no big lake to recharge the water, and no step wells, no wells left. So you are creating a water crisis. Can we take inspiration from the bodies and the wells that existed, which can be both tourist attraction as well as a water recharge mechanism that they were supposed to be to begin with? So I really don't know if I have the answer, but these are some of the angles that we need to start looking at. uh, we have a lot of living traditions. We don't realize that when we say that we are the most ancient living civilization of the world, that there are a lot of strands of old civilizations that are living right in our backyard, right in the lanes around us. I have quoted a lot of examples of these living traditions in the book, so I'm not going to diverge a lot more about the book, but I want you to start looking at them. I want you to start looking at the language metaphors. I'll again come back to the language metaphors. There's a phrase called pani sir se nikal gaya. We've often heard it during our childhoods ki pani sir se nikal gaya, for a situation which is completely out of control, where you can more or less do nothing about. It's like a situation that has completely gone out of hand. And I've often wondered, where did this phrase come from? Where are the roots of this phrase? And it was during my study of water bodies in Rajasthan that I figured out the source of this saying. Water bodies, they usually have a temple or at least a murti of one of the deities. In Rajasthan it's mostly Krishna, but it could be any other deity. So they put a deity murti right next to the water body, and it's a water marker. So if the water touches, after the rains, the water bodies fill up, if the water touches the feet of the deity, they say this means that there is ample water to last for a year. If the water doesn't touch the feet, अगर पाँव नहीं छुए, अगर कृष्ण जी के पाँव नहीं छुए पानी ने, तो there is less of water and we have to use it accordingly. There's not ample water to last for the year. If the water reaches the navel, then you can splurge a little, then there is enough water for you to use it as you want it. If the water level reaches the neck, then this is the first sign of alarm. If the water crosses the head, it's the head of the deity, iska sir se pani nikal gaya, then you should leave the village and go. Then it's a disaster. Then you have to get into the disaster management course. So these were all water markers, and they have so easily gone into our language, and we've lost touch with that language. So we don't understand these metaphors, which are rooted in our heritage, and they have a very, very simple, today we have such sophisticated equipment to measure water levels and water pressure and this thing. And in my book, I have quoted a few examples. Very, very simple. Most temples located next to water bodies are in some way or the other are water markers, which will tell you the water levels, and they indicate if there is a danger level, if the water has reached a danger level, and if you should make arrangements for escaping out of that the village or that region. And it also gives you an indication of the amount of water available to you till the next rains come, besides the water recharging and everything. These are, and it's ironical that I'm speaking to you in English, which language in which a lot of nuances of our culture are lost. Like a very famous example that all the chacha, taya, mama, mosa, everything becomes uncle in English. Similarly, a lot of nuances of our culture are lost when we use English language. But since the book is in English, and I'm hoping that we'll do a Hindi version at some point in time, I'm talking to you in English. Diversity is another word that is used to describe India very often. Unity in diversity is said, but it's rarely understood. I would say that Indian civilization is like a different manifestation of the same reality. Just like our deities, we say they are all 33 million manifestations of the same Brahman or the same deity, and one can manifest as another at any point in time. Similarly, our diversity is nothing but a different expression, different creative expression. At the core of it, our belief systems are the same, and they come from these two things: our belief in the same deities, our belief in the same metaphors, and our intersections, our regular intersections, which are enabled through the yatra. Now, with that, I'll stop with what is there in the book and let you read the book. I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 things that I seriously feel we need to do in the field of travel and tourism. We need to study our Indic travel traditions. Just before pandemic, I happened to visit a tourism institute. And when I visited their classrooms, I was shocked to see that they had charts explaining the different types of wine glasses. And I asked the faculty, I said, do you also have a chart where you explain a lassi ka glass, a pulhad chai, or a filter coffee glass, which are so unique in themselves? They said, no, who is interested in that? I said, but then who's coming to India to have wine? Wine belongs to a region, and those regions are doing great in wine tourism. Why would somebody come to India to have wine in wine glasses? They had no answer. Then I later learned that what we teach in tourism institutes is that tourism started with Thomas Cook. Even on Wikipedia page of tourism, if you see, they say that in ancient times, only rich people could afford to travel. And we in India know that wealth has nothing to do with travel. It has a lot to do with luxury travel and leisure travel. But in terms of yatras, in terms of pilgrimage, it has nothing to do with your wealth. If you want to do a pilgrimage, enough people who just walk. You see the Pandharpur Yatra even today, or you see Narmada Yatra, or you see a whole lot of parikramas, Govardhan Parikrama or Arunachaleshwar Parikrama. Across the country, people just walk when they want to travel. So uh, the world ignoring our travel traditions is disappointing, but we ignoring our own travel traditions, I don't even know what word to use, what word to use for that. If our institutes are saying that the tourism started with Thomas Cook, or the tourism started when Europe discovered tourism, it's a pity. We have such a huge corpus of travel literature. Skanda Puran, which is one of the 18 Mahapuranas and the biggest of the Puranas, is nothing but a documentation of our yatra traditions. It documents the pilgrimage places of all the important pilgrim cities and kshetras, as we call it. I'll quote a few examples from my book, Ayodhya Mahatmya. It talks about Ayodhya as a city. It tells you where exactly Ayodhya is. So there is no confusion about Ayodhya could be here, Ayodhya could be there. It very clearly says it is located on the banks of river Saryu. Which Saryu? Which comes from Lake Mansarovar. And where is it on the length of that river? It is located between the sangams of Saryu River with Pilodiki River and Gharghara River. So between these two sangams of the river is located the city of Ayodhya, and on this bank. And this is the extent of it. And then it goes on to describe each and every tourist place or the pilgrim place that exists right from each tirth, with a story associated with it. Why is it important and what is to be done there? Once you are there, what should you do? What kind of pujas can you do? What should you give? What you should not give? What is the sequence in which you should do the parikrama of the place, and what is the mahatmya of that place? And I have just translated Ayodhya as of now, but almost every ancient place is documented in Skand Puran, and if it's not in Skand Puran, it's in some other Puran. Padma Puran also has some of them. There are independent Thal Puranas available in the locations. For example, when I visited Kolhapur Mahalakshmi temple, now not much is available about it in most standard Sanskrit texts. But when you go there, you discover a whole lot of Marathi literature which captures the Kolhapur Mahalakshmi Mahatmya. Similarly, other kshetras. For example, when I visited Birija Devi in Odisha, her literature is primarily available in Odia. So the translation is a big task. We'll have to translate it for the larger audience in the languages that are read by the visitors. But that's a task for us. There is a whole lot of literature available. I don't think there is this kind of literature available for any other ancient pilgrimage site, written so extensively and written for the traveler. In a way, ancient Lonely Planet guides, if I can say, but written in far more depth. So I really want ideally Ministry of Tourism, but I have no ways to reach them. So I am putting out there in the open that some organizations need to take it up and document all our ancient Sthala Puranas so that they are not lost. And when we preserve our ancient travel traditions with those documents, then we need to also look at Indian way of traveling. And when I say Indian way of traveling, I'm not asking you to go back to bullock cart days, although that could be an experience. But what I'm saying is that you need to know the place you're visiting. So in the last chapter of my book, I've actually given that when you visit a place, what are the temples you should visit? What are the things that you should visit to know a place a little bit, rather than going and interacting with the place where only tourists come. I live in Goa, and let me tell you, most tourists come and they spend their days in Baga, Kalangut, and go back, and they think that is Goa. And ask a local, and they wouldn't have probably visited that area in in ages. I have not visited it in ages. So if you go to a place and interact only with other tourists and not with the locals, you're missing out a lot. We need to encourage slow travel. There were a lot of travel tourism products possible which are very Indic in nature. But unfortunately, this whole tourism business and trade is in the hands of people who are into selling only hotel rooms and flight tickets or booking taxis for you. None of them is thinking of innovating in a way that we can teach the world how to travel immersively and travel with a lot of purpose at heart. I'm hoping that when Ayodhya is developed as a next pilgrim destination, we will take care of some of these things, and we will not make it another Disneyland, Ramayan themed Disneyland. I seriously hope that we do that. And there's a lot of scope of developing most of these ancient pilgrimage sites. They get a lot of tourists. They get the devotees. They get people who are devoted to these sites. But people who are urban, people who are young, it's not on their wish list, so to say, unless it comes with something that is treated esoteric or something. So we need, tourism is world's biggest employers. uh, 11 to 13% of people are employed in the tourism sector. Uh, India, probably a little less, barring a few pockets like Goa and Manali and Kerala. Most India can benefit by investing into a very Indic way of tourism, which is developed in a little more distributed way rather than concentrating it in smaller pockets. So I definitely want people to start creating products that are based on Indic knowledge, Indian travel traditions. I need the Sthala Puranas, the travel traditions to be documented. We have a whole lot of literature which can be called travel literature. For example, when you look at Kalidas's Meghadoot, it can literally be a travel uh, travel log of a cloud traveling from somewhere in central India to the Himalayas. Similarly, I've just figured out some other travel logs which I'm now trying to read and make sense of to understand what our travel traditions were. And a lot of our yatras used to replicate what they call a Kundalini Yatra. There's a video on my YouTube channel from one of the conferences we did where they say that a lot of these yatras that we traveled, they actually replicate the energy systems of our body. So when you're making them into externally, you are actually traveling internally also. So there's a lot of research that we need to do in our yatra traditions, because as we know, nothing in India used to be without meaning, without a lot of meaning, and without a lot of benefits for the human life and for the society. So, these are some of the things that I want to research on. There are a lot of parikrama paths across India where parikramas are done, smaller ones, Panch Kroshis, Panch Kos, which is about 15 kilometers one, to 84 course, which is roughly 300-350 kilometers, which are quite common. Two larger ones, I think Narmada Parikrama is the longest one, or maybe Kailash Mansarovar is the toughest one. But there is a whole lot of Parikrama literature that we need to create. Most people who go also, they rarely get to hear the stories. They rarely get to hear there's no research done on why those are done, and what do we get out of them besides the spiritual benefit. There is a lot more that we get out of them. Okay, so somebody saying we are not too young to travel by foot. Yes, sir, there are a lot of ways. A lot of people do. I mean, there are alternates available for those who cannot travel by foot. There are a lot of, and in fact, if I read correctly, there are a lot of people who actually kept themselves fit so that they can walk by foot. I have a friend who's right now trying to do Narmada Parikrama, and she makes sure she walks like 15-20 kilometers a day so that when she goes on the parikrama, she can do that. Even people who travel to Kailash Mansarovar, they train for almost 6 months to 8 months before they start their journey. So that's another reason, that's another goal, to keep yourself fit so that you can do those travel. At IndyTales, which is my travel portal, we are now making it very research oriented, where we hope to publish the research in the travel space. I have personally documented a lot of my travels on IndyTales, so you can go and read about a lot of them. For example, I did Panchkroshi Yatra in Kashi, and after I wrote about it, I know a lot of people who did that yatra. I have written a lot about the temples in Goa. Now I get a lot of emails saying that now when we plan a trip to Goa, we keep a day for traveling to its temples and seeing its temples. So anybody who wants to join us in doing research in the travel yatra space, please reach out to us on IndyTales or through Sangam Talks. Sangam Talks is pretty much our partner in a lot of things. So we are trying to publish a lot of books in the travel tradition. So Lotus in the Stone and Unusual Temples of India is one of the first books, but we hope to bring out a lot of books to you in which document the Indian travel traditions and which you can use to travel to a lot of our ancient places. And actually, every place in India is an ancient place. If you dig, you'll find ancient stories almost everywhere. So anybody who wants to join us, please reach out to us and do read Lotus in the Stone. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, any ideas that you want to share, I'll be more than happy to hear. And with that, I'll hand it over to you for any questions that are there.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to pay my compliments to the lady. Fantastic session, ma'am. I really enjoyed it. Um, just a comment. I'm from Uttaranchal, which is called Devbhoomi. But then even there, I can see that the government is doing nothing to promote a lot of old mandirs. There are sacred trails there. And, there are local tourists who actually talk about it when you probe them. I thought it is peculiar to just northern India, and again, I have not been to much of southern India when it comes to to visit mandirs. And again, in Rajasthan, I could see that, for example, Udaipur as a city has got beautiful temples, old temples, temples on the hills. I mean, you can't imagine something like this, and you don't find this thing in any of the planners, from the local tourists, local guides to the state, the list that they have. And we can see that the government is completely underplaying it everywhere. Is it the same in southern India? Though I've been on business trips, I've never been on a personal trips for that matter.
It's more or less the same, Jashodaji. So just like Uttarakhand has a very popular circuit of Char Dham, and anything beyond that is ignored. Similarly, in South India, for example, Kanchipuram is a very, very popular tourist place. So people go to those 3 or 4 major temples, and there are a whole lot of smaller places, smaller traditions which are completely ignored. So the problem is more or less the same everywhere. Rajasthan tourism actually is doing a much better job, though they have not touched temples per se. So I would say one is that if you are in a position to influence the government, please influence them. But if you, like me, you are not in a position to influence the government, it's best to collaborate with people like us, and we will at least put a spotlight on those temples. So in fact, I had written to Uttarakhand tourism that I would like to go around. In fact, your Rudraprayag district has some very beautiful Navagraha temples. There is a Rakeshwari temple, and there are a lot of undocumented temples. So I had written to them saying that I would like to come and document those temples, at least provide me with somebody who can give me information or collaborate with me, but I haven't heard back from them. So the best is to collaborate amongst ourselves and put a spotlight on it. I'm also happy if you are there, please send us stories. We'll publish them and we'll put a spotlight on them. You can write them as guest authors, or you can send them stories. We'll write them, document them in whichever way possible, put spotlight.
As we talked about Kashi corridor just now, what are your views on that? When we talk about it, they are destroying much. They are even destroying the sacred trails for the parikrama, they're also shifting the place of the deity, which when you do that, then you're just destroying the reason why it is established. So, in the name of development, why is it that a nationalist government, if I can call them, is doing that? And why is it that none of the religious institutions are opposing it openly and loudly? There are some voices out there, but not very prominent.
Right. So I cannot speak about the government, why they are doing it. Only somebody from government can answer. But let me, so this is one point I missed talking about during my talk, is that when we look at temples, we look at them as structures, we look at them as grand, magnificent structures. But temples are not structures. Temples are the urja of that place, which is what charges you when you visit them. And that so maintaining that urja is a process in itself. It's an adhyatmic process, it's a ritualistic process through which the urja of the temple is maintained, and every devotee who goes and prays in a temple adds to that urja. That's why the ancient places like Kashi Vishwanath have a lot of urja, and you can feel it the moment you are in the vicinity of that region. You can feel it. And I seriously hope, for last 3-4 days I've been getting visuals of the destruction that has been done there, and people from Kashi have confirmed that this is how it has been done. Now I'm just hoping that whatever they have, so you can bring down temples to build a new one. That is a sanctioned process in our scriptures. So there is nothing wrong in doing that by bringing down a smaller temple to build a grander one. But there is a process of removing the deity from the temple, keeping the deity in worship at another place till the new temple is built, and then bringing them back and doing the pran pratishtha. So I'm hoping that they are doing that process while we see the destruction, but they're destroying only the temples and not the deities. And when the bigger temple is built, the deities are reinstalled. That's my hope, is all I can say. I don't know what else to say, because I have not visited Banaras in last 1.5 year. Last I visited was in November 2019, when the houses around that place were brought down, but the temples were there. So what I hear now, I don't know if it's a right part of the process of building a new temple, or they're just building another Swaminarayan kind of Akshardham kind of a temple, which is what seems like the model for Ayodhya Ram Temple also. Honestly, I would want, if if I could be heard, I would say that the Ayodhya Ram Temple should be built in the local architectural style. There are ancient architectural styles of Kaushila and Kashi. They should be built. We don't need to replicate a Dwarkadhish temple there. A Dwarkadhish temple looks beautiful in Dwarka. But then all of us are just mere citizens. Only important when the votes are to be taken.
Yeah, that's the beauty of democracy. It is a democratic country when we have to elect someone, but after that, it is very different. Anuradha, my next question, I don't know if it's a question, it's more of an observation. We're talking about pilgrimages. Let's talk about pilgrims now.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the new generation. Let me take an example close to my home, which is my mother. And I can see that, when I tell her that, this is the age when you should not worry about, but yet constantly engage with, if I can say, materialistic, not for herself, but for family. I need to save this, I need to do that. And I tell her that it's a time when you should actually go out with. So I'm saying, even for a generation which is like my mother's generation, when I tell her that why is it that you don't go and actually visit the temples far off, she says, oh, everything is at home. Sab kuch man mein hai. And she's the same lady who goes to Uttarakhand, which is to our native place, every year for her Devi Puja. But then when it comes to other things, she has adopted this secular mindset that, oh, sab kuch man mein hai, sab kuch ghar mein hai, we have everything here, we don't have to go. And I worry that when I look at her, that if this is the stance that she has, what will happen to our generation by the time we go there, or our kids?
So, Jashoda, I would say, don't worry. That's what your mother is saying is a stage, and every Mahatma at the end says that all Ganga, Jamuna, all Tirthas exist within your body, within your home. So what she's saying is actually very Shastriya, it's a stage when you reach there. So there's a stage when you don't want to go anywhere. Then there's another stage when you want to go. You need to go somewhere, take up the energy from there and charge yourself. But once you are on a spiritual path, you do reach a stage where you say that all pilgrims are Ganga, Jamuna, sab hamare andar hi hain. So that's a stage of life. So don't worry, just go with the flow.
Dilip Palji says, a good infrastructure is also very important for tourism. I remember when we went on a road trip down south, toilets were a real problem for women. And also, it is cheaper to travel to South Asia than South India. The airfares are too high.
Right. So, see, the infrastructure bit, I would say it's a catch-22 situation. So once the tourists are there, the infrastructure comes up. I mean, if like I say, I live in Goa. During the tourist season, every home becomes a guest house, and during the off season, people are living there as usual, or they're lying in. So the infrastructure is a catch-22 situation. When the tourists start visiting, the infrastructure comes up. Infrastructure will not be built till the tourists are visiting, because it doesn't make sense. So that's a catch-22 situation. Toilets is a big problem as a woman traveler. In fact, if you ask me, if there is one issue I face in India while traveling, it is of clean toilets. No matter what the government tells us, there is no availability of clean toilets, clean, safe toilets. And in women, clean toilets are directly related to our health. It gives you infections immediately. I picked up infections on the way when I've used public toilets. So that is a big problem. We can only ask government to give. There are some solutions people have come up with, where you can use to, like women can use men's toilet using those products without touching anything, so you can avoid infections. But none of those products have really become a mainstream product, which means they have not really been developed well. So either the infrastructure has to come up, or some technology has to come up where women can relieve themselves without torturing their bodies. And I can tell you from my personal experience that my body was so trained that I could go without using a toilet for 15 hours, 16 hours. But the moment I entered my home or my hotel, I couldn't wait for 30 seconds. That's how trained my body became due to travel. It's a pain. I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer for that. And the third thing he asked was,
he talked about the travel rates. It's easier to travel to South Asia than to South India.
Yes, that's all. That's because those destinations are promoting themselves very aggressively to Indians. India is a huge market for those countries, and they are very aggressively engaging. Let me tell you, I have been engaged as a travel influencer by Indonesia tourism, by Thailand tourism, by Malaysia tourism, but rarely have I been engaged by Indian tourism board. Sometimes some of them have, but not as many as could have. So they're not promoting, they're not seeing you as potential revenue contributors. They're not even seeing other countries. Most of them are not. So yeah, it's a gap in the travel tourism industry planning. It's clearly a gap. There is no reason why a ticket from Delhi to Kerala should be costlier than Delhi to Singapore or Thailand. Failure on the part of our Ministry of Tourism.
The next question is from Som D, and he says that, could Anuradha ji talk about her experience of water body management? Maybe a few examples you can cite.
Yes. So the best examples of water management you find, I'll take two examples. One is Rani Ki Vav in Patan, Gujarat, which is one of the most beautiful step wells. It's 7 stories inside the earth. So you have on the top, you see only a hole in the earth, but below, inside, there are 7 stories that you can go down. And the walls of that step well, Rani Ki Vav, are the most beautiful walls that you can see. And the end of this, it's a huge water step well. And the end of it, there is a well, and that well has walls which are completely carved. And at the end of it, in all step wells, you will see a Sheshashai Vishnu, because these step wells were created like Shir Sagar, where Narayan is sleeping on Sheshashai. So, so that's one place where water body was built to provide water for an area which is a relatively dry area. Whole of Rajasthan has lot of such step wells, the most beautiful being the Chand Baudi at Abhaneri. So step wells are very common in Rajasthan, Gujarat area, because they are relatively dry and they're the easiest way to maintain water levels. But the best water management system in India, if you have to study, you have to go to Mandu in Madhya Pradesh. On top of a table, it's a tabletop city with no natural source of water. The closest river, Narmada, is about 50 kilometers from the city. And there is no underground, because it's a rocky hill, there is no underground water source. The only source of water is the rainwater, and every drop of water is preserved there. The architecture of that place, the palaces, the forts have been built in such a way that they preserve water. There are water wells, and then around that the whole palace is built. Jahaj Mahal is completely built like that. Wherever you see, there are water bodies built to collect water. If you visit the Baj Bahadur Ka palace, you will see on top of the walls there are channels to capture every drop of water. And that's the best example. Mandu at its peak used to be one of the most densely populated places in the world, and it has managed to not just manage water, but manage water in a way that they could afford to have swimming pools and water sports, and the water filter, the natural way to filter water. So water was also filtered in a way that it naturally divided itself into drinking water and the water for the other purposes. So these are two best examples. But I have also seen step wells in places like Kanchipuram, which are very similar to the step wells in Western India. They can be seen in Hampi, in the Vijayanagara Empire. I have seen them in UP, in Vindhyavasini, in Vindhyachal, near Vindhyavasini temple. I'm sure they exist everywhere else as well.
Thank you, Anuradha ji. The next question is how to get off with this colonial hangover in the forms of English language, Indian constitution, Indian law, judiciary, education system, and ultimately the minds of people. And why is the ASI so biased towards Islamic and British monuments?
I don't know. It's ironic, like I said, we are speaking in English and talking about it, so we have to let go of it. हमें ही बात करना शुरू करना पड़ेगा हिंदी में सबसे पहले. We have to start with ourselves and hopefully let it go. So Islamic monuments, especially in North India, there are two reasons. One is that they are closer to us in history. So they belong to a period which is closer to us, and we know a lot more about them than about, let's say, a Chauncet Yogini temple, which is 8th, 9th century temple, about which we don't know anything. We just know that it's a curious architecture. There is no mention of it anywhere. So these Islamic structures are far closer to us. We know who built them, when they were built, why they were built. And then there is a continued patronage to protect them. There was never a break in the patronage in protecting them and preserving them. So those are the two reasons why they are there. And because it was there, it just continues to be there. So I'm not saying anything about Islamic buildings, but I'm saying pay the same attention to the ancient heritage as well. So in Delhi, if you are preserving every little known, unknown tomb, please preserve Lal Kot as well. Please preserve a Surajkund temple as well. Please preserve those small little temples that have managed to survive in the Purana Kila area. Please revive Dashashwamedh Ghat on the banks of Yamuna. So do what you want to do with the medieval heritage, but also look at the ancient heritage of these places. But we need to demand, we are not demanding. Honestly, we are also not demanding in an organized way to which these authorities can respond. I have seen a lot of communities coming together to demand that government should do in a structured way, making a proposal, sending it to them, lobbying for it, taking money, and then using their own own architects and things like that to preserve. We've not done that. I have not seen any Hindu organization coming up and saying that, I want to restart the Mudhera Sun Temple, and this is what I need, and give me this help, and I will revive it. So there is a lack of will from our side as well.
The last question we have in the chat box is, it's from Vinod Ji. He says, what are the current trends of pilgrimage combined with tours and vacation? If we convert a temple place as a vacation or a tourist spot, does the sacredness remain? And how about moksha or self-realization in this case?
Okay, so I'll give you one example of Gokarna. Gokarna is a coastal town in Karnataka, and it's also a very backpackers, haven, if I can say. Gokarna is an ancient pilgrimage place mentioned in lot of our Puranas, and almost every pilgrimage place you'll get a Gokarneshwar Shivaling, which links the place to Gokarna. And it has the whole Parshuram story and lot of other saints. It was a big tapasthali of lot of our sages. But in the recent past, it has come up as a very bohemian backpackers tourist place who are not really as interested in the temples. They may visit the temples, but they're not as interested in the temples. But then there is this whole lot of people who visit there for all kinds of ritual worships. It's also a place where last rites are done and pindadans are done. So that's a place which has very beautifully balanced the high-end tourism, the wellness tourism, the pilgrimage tourism, as well as the backpackers tourism. So if Gokarna can do it, I'm sure other places can do it. No, the sanctity is not lost, because see, if the energy of the place is good, if the energy of the place is strong, it will impact everybody who's coming there. And just like Jasoda ji spoke about her mother, there are a lot of people who may not visit the temple like we do, but they do capture the energy of the place. And pilgrimage places, especially the ancient Tirth sthalas, the sthal is important. Temple is not that important. That sthal is important.